The final word in sports all across the state. You're listening to Sports Talk with your hosts, Bill Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. You've been waiting all day. So join the show now by calling 800-956-7266.
Started the game very poorly with turnovers, some careless ones, and then couldn't make free throws, couldn't make a shot. We were a little down and just kind of pouted a little bit based on our poor offense.
We let our offense affect the way we play. Guys were missing shots. A lot of guys didn't have a good start. So I think once we started that, we kind of got in a slump, and then we dug ourselves a whole way too deep.
When I tell you we're looking for leadership is when things are not going your way, somebody to give everyone courage. First time all year, I see it today. 3 guys, Chris Silva, Wes Myers, Frank Booker. Those 3 guys said, no, not tonight.
This looked like a bunch of freshmen playing. First time this year, I would say, in the second half. The first half, you would look and say, oh, they got a nice team, and they're all freshmen. In the second half, you looked at us, and we looked like a bunch of freshmen playing like freshmen would play.
Yeah, like we're going to give you sympathy, Calipari, you snake in the grass. I mean, he's like the guy that murders his parents and then complains about being an orphan. I mean, come on. You recruit one and dones by the dozen. They leave you every year with another group of freshmen, and now you're complaining about it.
I hate to sound like somebody who had anything invested in last night, but it's just a good day when we get to see him lose.
Yeah.
It's a good day.
It is a good day. That's a very good day.
These freshmen are not seasoned with some of those little veterans he used to have floating around.
That's the thing that Frank said coming into the game is that this team is kind of having to learn on their own. And down the stretch, you put them in a game, you smack them in the mouth late in the second half. They don't know how to respond, and it personified itself.
Well, great night for the Gamecocks. No doubt about it. Anytime you can beat Kentucky, no matter what their state is, it's a great night for South Carolina. And, man, Clemson had a chance last night in the second half to some degree. And they were always climbing that mountain one step at a time. But, you know, when you hit 15 shots in a row, 15 shots in a row.
Yes, it was beautiful.
From all different angles.
It was lovely.
They went from roughly the 18:45 mark of the second half to the 5-minute and 30 mark, 13 minutes more or less without missing a shot. Now, if some turnovers worked in there and all that kind of stuff, but you'd miss a shot for that entire period of time in the second half. Got to within 2, but they never could be within 2 with the ball. You know, North Carolina always was able to answer and get it back to 4, get back to 2, get back to 4, 5, 6, 8, and then
imagine
on
if they had,
to the end.
Imagine if they haven't dug the hole that they did in the first half. And I mean, anytime you dig a hole in a game of that nature.
Well, I hit you guys right at the very end of the half.
Right.
That's where it went from 9 to 15.
Right.
3-pointer, 2 missed free throws by Clemson, 3 free throws by North Carolina, and it's 15 points at the break. Then you come out, you miss your first shot. North Carolina hits a 3. You're down 18. Then all of a sudden, you start making it from every possible angle. And it was incredible. I mean, and Marquise Reed just went. He had 15 points during that run.
Insane.
He was.
The key point is, and this is where coaches get caught up, and Will and I were talking about that in the office. It's almost like you're at the roulette wheel and you're hitting every number, but you know that your team is going to hit a wall and you want to give them a timeout to rest. But if you're Brad Brownell, wait a minute, no, I'm riding this hot streak. Let me have the dice again. I'm going to get. And I thought last night, I thought my prediction would come through. I said, please run through this wall because I know the fatigue is about to hit you to steal this ball game.
The object of victory last night for both Clemson and South Carolina was very similar. It was like running a thoroughbred horse race. You needed to keep as much distance between you and the pack as possible and then find the opportune time to make your move. Clemson fell too far behind that when they tried to make their move, they spent so much energy trying to get back to the pack that they ran out of steam down the stretch. South Carolina kept Kentucky at arm's length. Now, the lead got to 14 with about 11 and a half to play, and then all of a sudden, the light switch turned on. There was an intentional foul on Mike Kotsar. It came back on the opposite end. Kotsar is fouled by Diallo, and all of a sudden, that seemed to kind of spark the Gamecocks. Shots were hitting. Chris Silva was playing well inside. And also, Kotsar looked like a different player. It looked like the guy we saw last year be a major contributor for the Gamecocks down the stretch. He finally showed some assertiveness, and Wesley Myers scoring 6 in the final 2:16 for South Carolina. This was a game that probably the most complete 11.5-minute stretch they played, and that followed a 10.5-minute stretch in the opening half where they didn't hit a field goal.
And Booker and Gravitt, two players that coaches kind of like because they play better coming off the bench. Those guys came off the bench and they really just absolutely played the lights out.
One of the most important plays of that game was late, where Booker had that open three, and instead of taking the three, he shot fake, dribbled in, and then drew the contact to get 2 free throws. Higher percentage opportunity there with 2 free throws, and the clock stopped. Magnificent heady play by him. And South Carolina, I'm not saying that they've completely turned their season around. We'll find out this weekend against Tennessee how much progress they have made, but this is a game that this team could not have won earlier in the year.
18 offensive rebounds against Georgia, and you then come into Kentucky, 14 offensive rebounds and only 9 turnovers.
Lowest offensive rebounding total for Kentucky this whole year.
They are starting to play Frank Martin basketball now. And with a little bit of shooting, it makes them very tough. They've kind of regained the Frank Martin aura of defense, rebounding, and floor burns. Now, they've added a little bit of shooting last night, except for the foul line. They still missed a bunch of free throws. But the overall shooting outside was better. Coach Sarr was a nice bonus to have back with them last night. His contributions were huge. Silva is an all-SEC player right now, and continuing at this pace, if they continue to win, he plays like this, he'll deserve some All-American consideration. Great win for South Carolina. Gets them back to 500 in the league, and now you'll see. You get Tennessee at home Saturday night. They're going to honor the football team. This is the honor the football team basketball game at halftime, so that should bring out a few thousand more people. Should be a very good crowd. Tennessee's a top 25 team. Always good to have Rick Barnes in the building. Old rivalry time there between South Carolina, Rick Barnes, and a chance to build on what has been a really good week for South Carolina.
I'm going to stop down on what you said about the offense, because Frank Martin said something last night when I asked him about that kind of clicked with me, because I asked him, I said, you never planned to shoot in that kind of drought, the 10.5-minute drought, but how confident were you that your guys shot out of it? And he said the one thing he's noticed is that they're not getting the right kinds of shots because their passing has been lack. Like the pass either comes late or it's, you know, the phrase in football where you throw a guy open. They don't know how to do that yet with this group. They don't know how to get to spots and move to spots and throw the ball to spots to where a guy can catch and shoot and put it up and in and make it a high percentage shot. Too much of the time they're having to create off the bounce or possibly create offense from a guarded position. So in that vein, South Carolina continues to need to work on its ability to get good shots and shot selection. But the other thing, too, is that the aggressiveness is something that we saw last night that we hadn't seen all year.
Well, other than the defensive performance years ago, Phil, of Muldrow blocking Kentucky shots, I have not seen a guy like Silva dominate Kentucky in the paint. Every time he got it in the paint, he just went up strong. Even when he was hit and there was no whistle, he just carried whoever was on his back into the basket with him.
What's the magic number for Silva? It's not 25 points. It's not 8 or 9 rebounds.
Minutes.
30 minutes a game. You get 30 minutes a game. He got 35 minutes out of Silva.
It's amazing.
Last night, and only 3 fouls. You give him 35 minutes, he's going to get you 20 and 10, and he's going to help South Carolina do a lot of good things here down the stretch.
Credit to South Carolina for keeping its composure in that contest, because there were 31 fouls called in the opening 20 minutes of that game. There were 59 whistles in 40 minutes. It was a very, very hard game to kind of maintain flow. But as Kentucky's players kept on getting into foul trouble, South Carolina's stayed out of foul trouble.
And one thing about Clemson, North Carolina, going back to that, the Tigers, their first half approach by the players, I'm sure it wasn't by the coaches, was all wrong. They kept jacking up the threes. Elijah Thomas could have had a field day.
Yes.
Too many
inside.
Passes. Too many passes in that game.
They could not stop him inside, except that he never got the basketball enough to really be dominant in the first half. He finished with 16 and 6 before fouling out. He could have had a monster night, and that might have saved their offense in the first half and made it a little bit closer at the break. We'll be right back.
This is the place to talk Tigers, Gamecocks, and more. Sports talk across the state on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Well, we hope that you are warm and dry wherever you are tuned in to Sports Talk tonight. Remind you that Sports Talk brought to you in part by Founders Federal Credit Union. Check out foundersfcu.com. Learn how they can assist you in all of your financial needs. Want to join in? 800-956-7266, phone number. Email talkback, sportstalksc.com. Twitter at SportsTalkSC. Took the Sports Talk sled into the office today, cutting through the, about 3-4 feet of snow we got outside our studios today?
Not even.
It was a blizzard like I've never seen before here in January.
You've never seen a blizzard.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. So I hope everybody's negotiating it. I know the states, we have one sand truck in our state and one snowplow. And I know they're probably up on I-85 taking care of
that, but yeah, I get you.
See, and I'm not making, look, I know people around the state get pissed when you talk about because your area was not impacted. I'm sure there's some parts of the state that got some snow.
I know Charlotte was
and all that,
about 2 or 3
just like a couple of weeks ago. But we in Columbia get nothing.
The winter storm warning ends in about 40 minutes.
Yeah,
supposedly.
Right. Well, it's a winter wonderland out there, to be quite honest with you. 800-956-7266. Your thoughts on the Gamecocks win last night, the Tigers' effort against North Carolina. Do you think I'm starting to come around to the idea now, as I got a lot of years left, don't get me wrong, but I'm starting to think never going to see it. Starting to think never going to see it. 0-59 now. Good opportunity last night. North Carolina's always going to be, I mean, you just walk around the arena and look at the history. They always, except for the rare occasion, they always are going to be good in basketball.
Well, the weirdest thing about what happened last night is that you thought that either a guy like Marquise Reed or Shelton Mitchell would be able to kind of take over a game and put the team on his back. And for a while that they looked like they were having that. It's just, again, they started their move too late. And like you said, their offensive philosophy to start the game was completely faulty. They should have been able, and they were able early in the game to get the ball inside of Elijah Thomas and use him to go up strong, because their interior defense was incredibly soft.
He could have scored. I mean, he scored the first basket of the game.
Yes.
They got it right into him. He scored. Then he hardly touched the ball the rest of the first half, and he was not in foul trouble. He picked up his second foul. Was that late in the first half? I think it was late in the first half. He eventually fouled out with 15 seconds to play. I do think Clemson missed the opportunity there. And even Brad Brownell said after the game that Thomas came out focused. He came out energized. He wanted the basketball. They didn't get it to him enough during that critical time. And then, you can't have Dante Grantham going 1 for 9 in a big game like this if you're going to win.
They needed him
really missed
night.
his shooting last night. So
and Thomas does not have the personality yet, Phil, that sometimes, it's prudent to go over the guards and say, give me the blankety blank ball.
Yeah.
Because I'm open in here. Give it to me.
Well, I just didn't think North Carolina, with Luke May on him in particular, I think he could have taken Luke May every time down low.
Yes.
Some of the other bigs would have slipped over there, but primarily it was May, and I think he could have had his way with May throughout the first half, and then Clemson could have gone into the second half and be in a lot better position, not having to dig out of that deep hole and maybe make a run with those guards shooting and do something and maybe get some separation.
The loss for Clemson doesn't worry me, but the one thing that does is the fact that they seem to be very Jekyll and Hyde when they are at home and away from home. Now, they were able to get a road victory at Ohio State.
True of most college teams.
But that's the thing. I mean, you don't play true road games in the NCAA tournament.
Beat Florida practically on Florida's home court.
You did, but
one up at Boston College.
This is the ACC, though. I mean, you need to be able to win one of these. I'm not saying that you go in on Tobacco Road and win a game in a rout, but I'm just saying you need to show the propensity to get one of these wins in order to coerce the committee that is going to seed you in the NCAA tournament, provided that you make it there.
I see, as they head down the stretch here, I really only see two wins on the road at Georgia Tech.
That's not going to sit anybody.
On January 28th. I think that's winnable. They got to play at Virginia. They got to play at Georgia Tech. They play at Wake Forest, which I think is winnable.
You got to split the Syracuse and the Virginia game.
But the last 3 road games will be tough to win: at Florida State, at Virginia Tech, and at Syracuse.
You got to win 2 of those games.
Yeah. So
if you want to look nice to the committee, you got to win 2 of those games and sweep the rest of your home schedule, which includes a game against Duke and a game against North Carolina.
If you shoot about 45% and play good defense, I think you can beat Florida State and Tallahassee.
Maybe you can split the Duke UNC game, but that's about it.
800-956-7266. Little note on Zion Williamson coming out this afternoon inside Carolina. That would be for the state of North Carolina. Writing that coaches from USC, Clemson, Duke, and North Carolina all scheduled to meet with Williamson this week. Gamecocks reportedly were to meet with him today. Tar Heels tomorrow. Clemson on Friday. Duke was in on Tuesday, this report says. Now, this is all depending on the weather. Spartanburg Day has a game today, or was to have a game today, against Rayburn Gap. That was postponed because of snow in Spartanburg. The next game is at home against Shannon Forest on Friday. He's going to announce 8 o'clock Saturday night to be carried on ESPN before the Kansas and Baylor game.
I have to give credit to the South Carolina fans last night, or at least South Carolina students last night. They were pumping the "We Want Zion" chant pretty heavy last night during timeouts.
Well, I tell you what, if you just go by, can you go by our weekly poll at SportsTalkSC.com? If you go by the weekly poll at SportsTalkSC.com, South Carolina is the overwhelming favorite to get Zion Williamson.
Again, I think it's a lot.
60%.
A lot of hope.
27% for Clemson. Yeah, this would.
There's a hope.
If he doesn't pick Clemson, it's going to shock a lot of Clemson people who are pretty much convinced he's going to Clemson. And perhaps they are right about that.
I don't know what I want to see happen, but I know that would be the one that would cause the most consternation. There'd be a very big inferiority complex from the upstate if that ended up happening.
Well, I just hope he stays in state. Either one of them.
That's what somebody
want to be in-state schools.
Somebody asked,
lift up one of the in-state schools. That would be great.
Somebody
because look, I watched. Seventh Woods is out at North Carolina right now.
Right.
Who knows if he's ever going to get the chance to be the player that he thought he was going to be there. Jalik Felton played about 3 or 4 minutes last night. He's just a true freshman. He's a good-looking kid. From that standpoint, but you just wonder at a place like North Carolina, with all the talent that they roll in, regardless of he played 3 minutes last night. A guy like Jalik Felton would be getting 20, 25 minutes at USC or Clemson right now. He got 3 minutes last night at North Carolina.
I mean, I know that there's the influence of the stepdad who, by all accounts, is trying to stay out of the situation, other than to say don't overlook the in-state schools. But I mean, there's a lot of Clemson influence in that family. I wonder if the South Carolina intonations that are coming from guys like Brian Bowen texting him and Frank Martin making this last-second push, I'm wondering how much that outweighs some of the internal influences.
I mean, apparently, the Clemson people I talked to say that he's going to Clemson, and he's told the coaches that. So if that's all correct, then the other people, they're wasting their time. These coaches are unless you can get him to change his mind. Apparently, his mind's made up.
Well, yeah, I mean,
based on what they're saying.
Yeah, from a standpoint of looking at it, you can't say he's had stars in the league, but you've seen longevity in the league. That he's coached players, high school players, Udonis Haslem, Steve Blake, college teams where he's recruited Northeastern, J.J. Barea, and your guy with the Knicks, who he coached at Kansas State for 1 year.
Right.
So his guys who he's
Michael
had
Beasley.
for 1 or 2 years, they may not be stars in the NBA, but they've been picking up some NBA checks.
Yeah, he's got guys like Bill Walker too from Kansas State as well. So I mean, that's the thing.
A former Celtic, by the way.
The pedigree from there is there for Frank Martin, but you could think that Zion Williamson's star is big enough to where he could rise up any coach's pedigree.
I happen to think he was looking at last night's 2 games and was going to make his decision based off the outcome of those games.
Yeah, that's different.
What do you think?
I don't know if one game is going to change his mind.
All right, we'll be right back. right, couple of quick notes here on Sports Talk. And coming up, we'll hear from Frank Martin about the Gamecocks' big win last night. Alabama reportedly is going to hire Mike Locksley as new offensive coordinator. This according to footballscoop.com. Locksley has been an assistant coach several different places, very popular assistant coach, and he apparently is going to be the guy. He's been at Maryland. He's been at Florida, Illinois, New Mexico. He's the head coach there at New Mexico. And so we'll see if that's going to come to pass. Probably will. Mike Locksley coming to Alabama to take over for Brian Daboll.
And not Hugh Freeze, as has been intimated by a lot of people coming into the week.
New members of the college football playoff today. Among them, Ken Hatfield, former Clemson head coach, former Arkansas head coach, former Arkansas star football player. The others, Paola Boyven, who is a reporter, former reporter.
Ex-reporter. She's now a professor at Arizona State.
Paola.
Joe Castiglione.
Castiglione. Really?
right.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Castiglione.
Former Missouri athletic director.
Ronnie Lott, Todd Stansberry, and Scott Strickland. Strickland, the athletic director at Florida and formerly at Mississippi State. So they get on for a 3-year term beginning this spring. Okay, and what else? Coastal Carolina has picked up a football transfer, offensive lineman by the name of
Sean Fitzgerald. You couldn't figure it out. You weren't quick enough. You need to be quicker. Get out.
And where's he coming from?
Michigan.
And why is he eligible to play right away?
Because he redshirted last year.
Wrong. Redshirting has nothing to do with it.
Why is he eligible to play?
Smartest man in the room.
Why is he eligible to play?
Does not know the answer.
Why is he eligible to play?
Because he was a walk-on at Michigan and he played his own way.
Yeah, okay. It's nice.
Yeah. Sean Fitzgerald. How big is he?
315 pounds?
310.
About the same.
6'3",
Not big
310.
enough.
315.
And Clemson today
Announces football schedule.
Thank you. Well, the ACC actually announced all the schedules, including Clemson's. They're still in the ACC.
Yes.
Tigers will open up against Furman. This is a couple of things here. Number one, no Thursday or Friday games.
Thank goodness.
Everything's on a Saturday. And the first 10 games, home and away, alternating. No back-to-backs.
First
either
11,
way.
First 11 games alternating back-to-back, home and away.
Yeah. Furman at home, at Texas A&M, Georgia Southern at home, at Georgia Tech, Syracuse at home, at Wake Forest, then an off week.
Idle.
October 20th, home to NC State, at Florida State, Louisville at home, at Boston College, be cold up there November 10th, home to Duke, and then home to South Carolina.
That is that stretch in the middle there. Home NC State, at Florida State, home Louisville, and then at Boston College, I think is the toughest stretch of it, because that's the part of the year where everybody kind of has what they want to do. You get it off the bye week, which is nice for them, but that's the 4-game stretch that I think if there's a trip up point, it's somewhere in that 4 or 5 week stretch.
I don't see a challenge till they play South Carolina.
No, well, but it only
and that might be a stretch
at Florida State.
Well, I mean, I know I've said Florida State could
you're
be
big
better,
on Florida State
if the quarterback's healthy and all that. But we're talking about new coaching staff there, new coaching staff at Texas A&M.
They could lose a Kyle Field.
Now, NC State's got their quarterback back, and they kept their offensive coordinator, but they lose.
That defensive line is
gone. And they lose Samuels, and they lose Himes. Yeah. The running back.
What about at A&M? You don't think that's challenging going down there?
That'll be challenging. But how good is A&M going to be? Who's their quarterback going to be? They've gone through so many of them here in recent years. So
you got I'm sure Jimbo will find somebody to play quarterback.
And of course, Louisville's defense.
Who's Louisville's quarterback going to be?
But that's the point. If Louisville will be good, if Petrino finds himself a quarterback. Now, if Boston College can put together the offense they had at the end of the season versus the defense they played against Clemson, then that might be a contest up at Chestnut Hill.
This might be the kind of year where Petrino surprises you with a really good team, because now, he's got the great quarterback is gone and all the offense built around him for the most part. Now he'll find himself probably I have no idea who his quarterback might be at this point. It might be more of a pure passing, play-acting quarterback that he's won big with over his time. And we'll see what happens there.
Starkel should be the quarterback at A&M, by the way. The guy who started the season but ended up getting hurt and placed by Kellen Mond.
Yeah, so I'll be honest with you. I mean, Clemson's looking at 12-0 right there very easily.
Yes.
Thinking that South Carolina could be, if the Gamecocks continue to improve, they could be the toughest test there the last week of the season. Let's jump to the phones here quickly. And then we'll hear from Frank Martin here coming up shortly, and recruiting coming your way as well. We are headed to
Rock Hill
to talk to
James.
Welcome, sir. How are you?
Good. How we doing today, guys?
Great.
Good. Two observations. One of them y'all just answered was I felt like the hardest stretch that Clemson was going to have was going to be that one right there. And you get the week off, and then you got NC State, who, yeah, they're going to be rebuilding, but, you know, it's still the Textile Bowl. You know, you always get a tough taste out of them. Obviously, Florida State, and then, you know, you come back for Louisville. You don't really know anything about them, but I feel like those three games will be the toughest. And other observation from last night, Clemson, North Carolina, I felt like Clemson really went away from getting the ball inside way too early. I just remember the first play of the game, we got the ball down low to Elijah Thomas, and he put it up 2 points. And then from there on, it was just like a free-for-all. Let's just shoot it from anywhere on the court. And, you know, we got hot in the second half, but I felt like that game could have been a lot closer if we would have just kept going down low. I mean, I felt Elijah Thomas was not a big one, but a mismatch for Luke May, a handful for Luke May. And I just felt like if we'd have done that, I'd have had a little bit better chance. And love you guys. Show all the see you out there.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree with you. I just thought, you know, he scored so easily on that very first possession. And, you know, basketball it's a complex sport, but it's also a simple sport. And if you have yourself an advantage in matchup, you go to it, and you go to it until the other team adjusts and takes it away or makes it more difficult. And, I mean, look at the next possessions by Clemson after he had scored easily on the inside. A missed three-pointer by Grantham, a missed outside shot, another one by Grantham, a three-pointer made by DeVoe. All the offense was coming from the outside, and it's just like the caller said and we talked about earlier. They got away from that very early. I think if they had established that inside presence early on, it might have made the difference in that first half.
It made a difference for two reasons. I think he can score down low, and guys with the personality of Thomas, big men, they start to get disinterested if you don't throw them the ball, and they just stand there and spectate. So you got to get him interested in participating in the basketball game, and who knows? They could have had a dual threat coming out of that second half with bombs from outside and playing inside as well.
Thomas made that one jumper at the 1938 mark. He didn't get another touch until 11:43, or at least a touch involving a layup until 11:43. Then he was held without a shot until the 5:57 mark of the first half. And then after that, got a made jumper with 2:44 to play in the half, and then didn't touch the ball again until the second half. So in that vein, you had 26 points in the paint. That should have been a clue. And North Carolina had 14. So that should also have been a clue in the fact that you could have dominated a little bit more inside than you needed to. And the reason that you didn't win that basketball game is because you settled and overpassed and thought too much of your three-point shot in order to try and get your offense going. You should have gotten your offense going from inside and out and used more of Elijah Thomas. Maybe it comes down to Thomas's confidence. Maybe he needs to be more assertive.
Well, I mean, you know, he only had one foul in the first half, picked up his second foul 3 minutes into the second half. So he was still in good shape. He could be aggressive.
Well, Brad does this thing where they take him out anytime he gets his first foul because they're afraid of him picking up his second.
Yeah.
So they get gun shy with it because he's got a propensity to pick up fouls. So they got to get to a point where he has to be more confident to be able to play when he is on the verge of foul trouble.
All righty, 800-956-7266. We'll come back with some Frank Martin for you. Recruiting update as well here on this Wednesday edition of Sports Talk. Also, later on, you know what it is. What is it, Will?
It's an SC Wild Wednesday.
It's an SC Wild Wednesday.
Oh, it's a snow night.
Here on Sports Talk. The captain will be here.
These guys, they never sleep. Check them out on the web at SportsTalkSC.com. Now, more of Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Joe Castiglione, my new favorite member of the College Football Playoff Committee.
I never knew your Italian was that bad.
It really is, except when it comes to food.
How about Pignoli? You know how to spell Pignoli?
Don't have to know how. That's why we have Google. I don't know how to do anything anymore. I've got Google, and I got Google for English, and I've got a
Google didn't help you pronounce Castiglione correctly.
Well, this is true. Hey, Jeff Goodman says the college basketball season next season will begin on Tuesday, November 6th with the Champions Classic.
Earlier and earlier every year.
And he says this is the right way to start the season. I don't know what that means, the right way to start the season.
Why don't you go back to,
because they've been starting it on a Friday night about the end of that week on a Friday night with football games. I guess because they're not going to start on a weekend with football games.
Why don't you go back to stalking that ugly bald guy with the two kids, Jeff, in Lithuania?
Oh,
wow.
Yeah. South Carolina's basketball season may have restarted last night. Well, maybe it started at Georgia with that win, carried over to last night with a really good come-from-behind victory at home against Kentucky.
He was a very surprised, I think, person just because of the way that team responded in the final 11 and a half minutes and carried that surprise into his press conference last night.
Obviously, anytime you're down in the second half and figure out a way to come back, it's good. The thing I'm proudest is, we've had moments like this in previous games, pretty much not here, away from home, at Alabama, Temple, up at the Garden, at Clemson. And we did not have, when I tell you we're looking for leadership, is when things are not going your way, somebody to give everyone courage. And first time all year, I see it today. 3 guys, Chris Silva, Wes Myers, Frank Booker. Those 3 guys refused. We were trying to let it go. We were trying to hang our heads again. But those 3 guys said, no, not tonight. And a lot of credit to them for doing that.
Frank, down 14, is there anything you said in the huddle that you felt really stuck the most as you guys gradually continue to come back?
If I repeat it now, you'll probably get me in trouble. When you're down like that, you can't beat the guys up. You got to figure out a way to find who still has some life and wants to fight, and then coach that guy to help him lead the others. And I think I burnt that second time out, and it didn't work. They still scored, and either we missed a shot or shot an air ball. I don't know what we did. It didn't work. So that was a moment that wasn't about coaching. That was a moment about kids taking ownership. And that's what we've been pushing for a long time. And our guys took ownership today. Now, what are we going to do? Are we going to build on that? Are we going to be better at practice Thursday? Are we going to, we got now 21st ranked Tennessee coming in the building Saturday, who plays as hard as any team in the country. And they're as experienced as any team in the country. It's going to be hard. What's going to happen when that game gets hard? Are we going to continue that leadership, or are we going to get quiet again? There's a lot of unknown right now with our team. I like our team. I got no problem with our guys. Our guys are great. They're fun to coach, but we got to grow up. And I can't sit here and tell you, well, we fought hard, lost a close one. We got young guys. You don't want to hear that. I know I don't want to hear it. So we got to grow up. It's plain.
Not that you plan on having the kind of offensive drought that you had in the first half again, but how much did it help the confidence of your guys to shoot their way out of it and know that they can come back in a game like this and win it by 8?
That's why we work on rebounding and defense. We spend a lot of time on those things. That's what keeps you in games. And then, we're not a bad shooting team. We got some young guys that are really, really frustrated because the ball won't go in the basket for them. So they get discouraged. I'll tell you what after coaching us for whatever number of games, we're not a very good instinctive passing team. Therefore, it's limiting us to be able to make more shots because our passes are not as quick and as crisp as they need to be. We're late on passes. They're not on point. And we got to work on that. I'm starting to pay attention to that a little bit more because obviously, we shot 27% against Georgia. We shot 34 or 5. I don't know what we shoot today. 37% today. So if we pass the ball better, we'll make more shots.
And the one thing, too, is that he did say that Wes Myers is now allowing him, with the ability that he receives this offense, allowing him to coach better and allowing to coach through him. And that's why we've continued to see Myers run the point more. Even with Gravitt coming back, they use the two of them on the floor together. It's allowed them to get better offense. They're still not where they need to be as far as offense goes, but they took some major progress last night.
From the 12.5-minute mark last night, I believe, when Kentucky took that 14-point lead.
11:30 mark, yeah.
Yeah. 36-14 in favor of the home team down the stretch.
Well, it'd be nice for them if they could at least split the next two, home to Tennessee, then at Florida. Then after the Texas Tech game, just staying in the league, they've got 2 games left with Mississippi State home and away. Got to go to A&M, got to go to Arkansas, got to go to Tennessee, get Florida at home, Auburn. It's a pretty tough road to hoe for them still. They got some really tough games. They got 2 games left with Auburn. They got 2 games left with Mississippi State. They got 2 games left with Tennessee. So all these teams are having good years that I've mentioned. Not to don't forget that Georgia will always be a tough game for them. They got to play LSU, which is having a pretty good year. So it's a tough road ahead for South Carolina to still carve out a good SEC record.
But LSU has just lost their 2nd straight home game to Georgia last night by 1 point after losing to Alabama.
Okay, let's give you some recruiting here on Sports Talk. Begin with some football. Linebacker Jalen Scott, next linebacker coming out of that Shelby High School program, 6'2", 220. Clemson, North Carolina, NC State, Duke, and Maryland are among his offers. He said Brent Venables of Clemson's in regular contacts. They like him a lot. He's coming in for a junior day at Clemson on Saturday, and he's watched the Tigers do their thing on defense and been impressed with how the linebackers play. Clemson and North Carolina on him the hardest right now, and he's going to visit Chapel Hill next weekend. Duke, big offer to him, he said. He also hears a lot from NC State. No favorite, but he said Clemson is in good shape with him at this point. Per Gamecock Central, USC offensive line target Dylan Wanham will take an official to Tennessee this weekend. He was at Auburn last weekend. USC scheduled for the 26th. Linebacker Kalen DeLoach of Savannah was offered by Clemson. Also has a USC offer. North Carolina also recently offered. Plans to be at Clemson Saturday. USC offered defensive back Tavion Land of Virginia Beach, Virginia. Clemson and USC target quarterback Sam Howell, Monroe, North Carolina, offered by Georgia. USC offered 2020 tight end Dominique Mamarelli, Naples, Florida. 2020 defensive back Joshua Moten, Fort Washington, Maryland. Basketball, 6'4" TJ Moss of Memphis goes to Findlay Prep in Vegas, remains unsigned. He was in Columbia with his team in December for the Chick-fil-A. USC got a look at him there. According to his dad, assistant coach Chuck Martin met with him. Frank Martin called. They offered, and South Carolina is in very strong shape with him. The father really likes Frank Martin and the USC staff. They will visit USC at some point when they can get the schedule worked out. Memphis is involved. Minnesota has also been in touch. He's a combo guard, but he's playing point guard at Findlay. And 6'3" Trey McGowans of Hargrave Prep, Virginia, offered by Rhode Island. He's also a USC and Clemson target, formerly of Wren High School. There you go with recruiting. Be sure to check it out on our website, SportsTalkSC.com, and on Twitter. Use the hashtag STRecruiting. Top of the hour break. We'll hear from Brad Brownell. Also a visit from Aaron Lucas after the top of the hour. And, of course, SC Wild at the bottom of the hour. Don't go away.
Round 2 of Sports Talk up next with your hosts Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show, 800-956-7266.
Welcome back, everybody. Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Here on a chilly Wednesday night around the state of South Carolina, but very, very warm here on Sports Talk because we are warm-blooded. Our hearts are full of warmth and love for you.
98.6, baby.
The games are underway in the SEC tonight. Arkansas leading Florida 11-10 in Gainesville. Alabama on top of Auburn 4-2. Sexton is not playing in that game for Alabama. He's out with an injury, so that's a blow for the Crimson Tide. Alabama and Auburn. Auburn is 16-1.
Yes. And
playing still without a couple of their key players they thought they would have at the start of the season. Imagine if they ever get those guys cleared and able to play.
The Sextonless Tide.
I said that.
I know. I'm just saying. I just trying to get a nickname.
I'm not so certain that Auburn is rallied around those two guys not being there. And Bruce Pearl is playing the type of ball he had at Tennessee. He's playing tough defense. They're hitting outside shots. Auburn has to be one of the surprise teams, not only in the Southeastern Conference, but in America right now.
You know, when I talked to Bruce Pearl at the Charleston Classic, the same tournament that Clemson played in earlier this year, I was asking him, okay, you know, what about these guys? And, you know, how do you feel about your team? And he kind of had that Cheshire grin that even though his team lost one team in the tournament, he had a feeling that they'd be all right. And I think you're seeing the personification of that from them at the start of this season.
800-956-7266. That's our phone number here on Sports Talk if you want to join in on the program. Several pieces of email been maturing in the email box here. You know, we like to wait for the email to mature and become of age before we present it to you.
Is that a fact?
Let's take a look at a couple of them here. Some of this is email and some of this it would be a post on our website. This is from Pat Kelly talking about the Williamson decision. His gut tells him North Carolina.
Is that a fact?
That's what his gut tells him.
His gut. Well, what is his gut worth?
I don't know. This is from Bobby Medlin, referring to our conversation about Dabo and returning players. I don't think it's fair to suggest that Dabo told recruits these guys were leaving. I believe he told them they may leave, likely, or it appears they may leave. But you really think Dabo lied to these guys?
Yes.
As if Dabo knew for certain they were staying?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Now, that's you now. I'm not suggesting Dabo lied.
I'm suggesting you do whatever you can. I'm
he's
suggesting
lying.
You do whatever you can to get the guy
But
inside the building.
You cannot sit here and say you suggesting a coach is lying. Now, come on, that's a bit much.
I'm not saying he's lying.
I don't think you should go there.
I'm saying you do whatever you can to get the guy in the building.
We don't know what conversations he had, but my guess is that
it's all a sales
job. In the course of recruiting, you say, look, I got an NFL eligible guy here, an NFL eligible guy here. Very good possibility that they're going to leave. If so, you got a chance to come in and play early. Turns out they didn't leave.
People made a big deal about him saying that that Urban Meyer was on his way out at Ohio State. That's a bold-faced lie. But guess what? You do say whatever you can.
Well, he didn't say he was on his way out. He suggested that he's retired before.
You just don't know what's said. Anyway, he says
it's all a pitch to try and get him in.
Come on, Dabo has earned more respect than what you give him. I'm giving him plenty of respect. I'm
just not disrespecting him by saying that he's doing that.
I'm just saying in the conversations you have over time during the recruiting process, you know, you start out with the kid, you warm up to him, you get him coming away. When it gets down to crunch time and the kid wants to look at the roster and look at the depth chart and he sees da-da-da-da-da, you say, well, da-da-da-da-da are all NFL draft eligible. I can't tell you for sure they're leaving. They probably will leave if they go ahead and have great years, but I can't guarantee it. But if they leave, you're going to have a chance to come in and play right away. And then if they don't leave, you know, you've covered yourself by saying absolutely. You can't say absolutely a guy's going to leave weeks in advance before you know.
Well, part of the sell also is playing for Brent Venables. So, and you're going to get snaps because they're going to rotate guys in. You know, even if they don't leave, you're going to get some snaps.
I'm not saying he did one thing or the other, but you do whatever you can to get the guy in the building.
All right. This is from Audrey about the hiring of BMAC, Brian McClendon, as USC's offensive coordinator. Phil, former players include Corey Miller and Rick Sanford have both endorsed this hire on the air. They say the continuity and familiarity allows the play calling to improve. Their problem were not the plays. It was about when things were called and the personnel they were using in certain sets. They both think McClendon would be one of the best options, and they both like the addition of Werner strengthening their endorsements. What do you say about that?
I love a lot of respect for Corey. He comes on our program every week during the football season. I'm not trying to set this as a disrespectful type of comment, but anybody who thinks that this is not a gamble is not looking at this with the proper objective
It's not
eye.
a gamble. He hired 4 guys with experience in Florida, and guess what happened? None of them worked.
It's a gamble to go with any guy who doesn't have a pedigree. You're hiring somebody who's never done the job before, and you yourself are not a coach on that side of the football.
And guess what? All 4 of the guys who had experience had to be hired what? One time.
And guess what? He's gotten this hire wrong every step of the way.
Because he hired guys who were established and they lost their fire. Now you got somebody who's young and wants to prove himself.
It's still a gamble.
It's not.
I think it's a bit of a gamble, but I also see what you're saying, Pro. I think that McClendon will bring a lot of energy, and he will bring a different look at the offense. I guess I kind of like the idea as this was going down. I still kind of like the idea of hiring a guy that had a pedigree, had his own offense. You know, somebody who had developed an offense. Now maybe McClendon's going to quote unquote develop an offense. But it is a gamble until he does and proves that it works. I got to be honest with you. Some of the play calls in the Michigan game, I was not impressed by. Now, you know, they finally got it going for whatever reason. Their adjustments, their blocking schemes, the better protection. It took them until 5 minutes to go in the third quarter before they got anything going on.
Are you telling me you're judging an offensive coordinator on every play and all of them are going to be good? No.
I'm telling you that the offensive coordinator position was not the problem. It had to do with what happened between the message to the personnel.
Boom. That's why another voice is good.
But it's from the same program.
You want me to put
the same program? You wanted an outside voice. I wanted an outside voice. I didn't care whether they had experience or not.
But here, this is the main voice now. Here's the other key about it. You say everything's a gamble. Have you seen the shape of the football they use? Every play is a gamble. Period.
I would rather get my open heart surgery.
Don't correlate the two.
I would like my open heart surgery to be performed by a guy who has experience and not the apprentice. If you know what I'm saying.
Now he's come to the point. Calling football games is not brain or heart surgery.
This is from Dwayne.
But it looked like they were performing heart surgery when they were trying to convert a 3rd and 1 all year.
I think this hire is in line with Muschamp wants offensively based upon his track record. I'm not going. This is a very long letter. Now, Muschamp's a defensive-minded coach, and like most of them, they want their defense to win the game, their offense to protect the ball, and this can work. We must remember Muschamp praised Roper's offenses and said he was one of the best offensive coordinators in the country.
Of course he's saying that. He wouldn't hire him if he didn't think that was the case.
However, this guy says, I see Muschamp as the Chad Holbrook of college football. Like Holbrook, he's a solid recruiter and he can win games. He can beat most of the teams he should beat, but he will more often than not lose to good teams, to the top 25 teams. This was Holbrook's downfall. He almost always lost to the top 25 teams. Quote, he was 29-51 against the top 25, this guy says in quotes, or in quotation marks. In parentheses, Corn. Time will tell, and as a 34-year Gamecock Club member, he writes, I'm tired, very tired of having so-so teams with only sparks of greatness. So I really hope
9 games this year.
I'm really hope he can do something great, though I still am not convinced he can based upon his offenses in offensive track record. I hope I am wrong.
You won 9 games and finished second in the East. Child, please.
They averaged 21 points a game.
Sports Talk is the sports talk show of Main Street, South Carolina. From the coast to the mountains, we cover it all.
All right, welcome back. Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. On a Wednesday night from downtown Columbia. Our Give and Go guys have both had to change plans with us for tonight. Jordan Roper, Aaron Lucas, things have come up with them, so we'll effort to get them on with us tomorrow night to discuss the games of last night and the games coming up on Saturday.
Slicing and dicing past us, Corn.
Well, I mean, they're important guys, and we appreciate it when they do join us. And when they can't, we try to arrange a time when they can be with us. So was not going to work for us tonight. So we'll get them hopefully on with us tomorrow night. Be interested to hear what they have to say about what went down last night and what is coming up this coming weekend for their two teams. Just a moment, we'll hear from Clemson's Brad Brownell. Check out foundersfcu.com and learn how they can assist you in all of your financial needs. So Clemson came back, made it a great game against North Carolina last night. Just could not find enough down the stretch to overcome the Tar Heels. They lose 87-79. Boy, what a second half. You know, you're Clemson, you make 15 in a row. You go from like the 18:45 mark to the 5.5-minute mark without missing a shot. You think you're going to win a game like that. Problem is, in the second half, Clemson shot 61%. North Carolina shot 65%. They just didn't do it all in a row, but their misses were few and far between, and that's what helped them offset what the Tigers were doing. Plus, this is the thing about North Carolina basketball. When you have so many great shooters and you move the ball, 23 assists for their 26 baskets.
You know what they say about football, run game is supposed to travel. Well, in basketball, defense is supposed to be able to travel, and that's the problem with Clemson. They packed their shots. They didn't unwrap them until the second half, but they didn't pack their defense.
Yeah, that was one thing that disappointed Brad Brownell. Here's some of what he had to say about the Tigers' game effort in Chapel Hill last night, but once again, 0-59.
Give North Carolina a lot of credit. I thought they played well tonight. I thought they were really ready to play. Obviously, the way they shoot the ball now, I think it's one of their better shooting teams, and we were certainly worried about that. Cam Johnson, I think, has been a great addition. There's a lot of guys to cover, and because of that, it's hard to cover them all. A little disappointed the way our guys played tonight. I don't think we played very well. Just started the game very poorly with turnovers, some careless ones, and then couldn't make free throws, couldn't make a shot. Thought we were a little down and just kind of pouted a little bit based on our poor offense, and never really defended like a team that's a good team. And they just made us pay all night.
Those turnovers that you guys had, how much of it was on you? How much of it was through?
I mean, there's certainly some of it is North Carolina's defense, but there's also some of it that's just carelessness and poor fundamentals, and guys just not being mentally into it where they should be, and we got to coach them better on the fundamentals of stepping around and passing and catching with two hands and just basic basketball.
Coach, how much did it hurt you when Eli picked up that fourth foul with about 8 minutes left?
I mean, it did hurt because I thought Eli was our best player tonight. I thought he was clearly the one guy that was ready from start to finish, and it hurt a little bit. He was very focused, playing pretty well, and it hurt a little, but it wasn't the difference.
Coach, what was the difference in the first part of the second half when you make 15 out of 16?
You know what? I thought we just executed some things better. I thought we were a little more patient. You know, some of his law of averages we have guys that miss. We did miss some open shots in the first half too, and you know, I'm not counting on making that percentage, but we just played better, settled into the game, and actually got a few stops. So now you're playing not against a set defense every time. I think that helps also.
Were you pleased with the shot selection in the first half?
Yeah, it really was. I don't think we took a lot of bad shots. I thought we had some bad turnovers. We had a few times where we put our head down and tried a couple bad plays, but that's going to happen every once in a while. We just didn't share it well enough and try to do a few things too quickly, and then the poor turnovers are really frustrating.
Turnovers have been an issue the last 3 games. What do you do over the next 4 or 5 days?
Just keep talking about it. You know, it's the one thing that this team has not done as well as last year's team. Last year's team took care of the ball. We're one of the best teams in the country, low turnovers, and some of it because we have so many guys that are aggressive. We do things too quickly, and then such as poor fundamentals, and we got to coach that better.
This team has proven, though, that it doesn't quit. At one point, hitting 15 shots.
Yeah.
In the second half, is this something that you can build off of the second half?
Yeah, I don't know if we're at that point where we need to be like looking for all those kinds of things. You just go out and play, and we've won enough games that we know we're a good team, and we have to play really well though to beat a team like North Carolina. I mean, that's just the way it is. They're going to be ready to play us, and they are. When they shoot it like that, they're going to be hard for teams to beat. But I just didn't think we were at the outset. We didn't do anything to set a tone like we were a really good team coming in here to win. And we just played the game, and that's disappointing.
How close is this team to being able to come into a place like this and win a game like this?
Well, we've gone to some places. We went to Ohio State and won, and we obviously won in a quote-unquote neutral game at Florida. And then, Boston College obviously isn't the hostile environment, but it's not going to be as easy as people think to go to Boston College and win. Jimmy's doing a great job with his team. So we've won some road games, true road games. We just didn't play well enough tonight. Again, some of that's because of North Carolina.
All right, Brad Brownell, not happy. I mean, listen, I think he realizes he's got a good team. I think he realizes he's got a tournament team, and he's not happy that they went in there and gave North Carolina a run for its money. He wanted to win that game, obviously, and he probably feels like didn't play their best basketball, especially in the first half, and let an opportunity slip away.
Well, it's inconsistency with the way that they play. I mean, they've been Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde from their home games to their road games, and this is 2 times in a row on the road where you go into an environment, you dig yourself a hole. They did the same thing in Raleigh in the first half last week. They were able to come back and basically almost draw to even by the end of the contest. They were a Gabe DeVoe free throw away from tying the basketball game and sending it to overtime. But that's the problem, is that when you create yourself that hole, you spend so much time and energy trying to get yourself back to square, and you're not able to do that. And from that perspective, if you don't dig yourself a hole, going 15 in a row allows you the ability to make that happen.
I want to take a moment here before we hit the bottom of the hour and get to SC Wild to congratulate Sports Talk Hall of Fame intern Scott Eisberg.
Yes.
Channel 4 in Charleston, named the South Carolina Sportscaster of the Year.
And a fellow Islander fan as well.
By the National Sports Media. Is it possible?
Go ahead. Keep going.
I mean, this is really...
Keep going.
You know what? Get me a gun.
Keep
Brian,
going.
have you got a weapon?
But,
oh, Captain.
Yeah.
Captain Downer, can I borrow your 38 for a second? I'm just going to shoot you. That's all. I am just going to pull out a weapon, and I'm just going to shoot you. And that'll take care of that, won't it? Yeah.
Attempted murder.
Anyway,
Yeah.
congratulate. No, it won't be attempted murder. It'll be completed.
Now, there's a lot of witnesses who've heard this.
You only get one shot.
Anyway, congratulations to Scooter Eisberg down in Charleston, Channel 4, National Sports Media Association, Sportscaster of the Year, and our friends Scott Kiefer, the Greenville News, and Grace Rayner from the Post and Courier. They tied for the Sports Writer of the Year award.
I don't like ties.
One thing about Brunell that I heard was key in his voice is...
I really wasn't finished talking about these people of the year.
I'm going to cut you off.
Wow.
Can I get a second bullet in that gun?
No, you can't, because I got mine loaded. The other key is he said that when they started missing shots, they hung their heads defensively. And that's a no-no. And I think that's what really made him angry last night.
Problem is, you shoot the both of us, it's a mercy killing. It's okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I'll have the room to myself. The Missouri Sportscaster of the Year. I know you're interested in
You'll
this.
have a room, all right.
It was Mike Kelly, I believe.
Missouri Sportscaster of the Year was Mike Kelly. Learfield.
5th time he won it.
Missouri Tiger Radio Network. Congratulations to him. Oh, great to see Woody Durham
Yes.
in the stands last night. He was recognized for being inducted or voted into the Hall of Fame. He was at the game with his wife. Wes was doing the game on TV.
Yeah.
And Woody looked great. Heard some things about health and all that, but he was there and he looked great. And he was in his seats in the upper deck, and fans gave him a great ovation. Really miss hearing Woody Durham, the chances you get to hear him doing Tar Heel sports. Really miss that. Great announcer. Okay, SC Wild coming up next.
It's time to get wild with SC Wild. Everything hunting and fishing from the South Carolina Department of Natural Resources and your host, Phil Kornblut. SC Wild on Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network.
It is such a pleasure to have back in the studio as he traveled through the rain, the ice, the snow to get to
Another
us.
snow day. Yes.
The captain, Billy Downer. I was going to say Debbie Downer, but the captain, Billy Downer.
You're on a roll.
You're no
tonight.
Debbie Downer.
You're on a roll tonight.
It's good to see you.
Great. It's great.
Last time you were snowed in, you couldn't get to us.
Yes, I was 4 to 5 inches at the house there in Sumter. And
how about this time?
This time looks like a little wet ground, maybe at the most.
That's good.
Some people got some. They got some good snow up toward Newberry, Lawrence.
So this storm, unlike last one, started like it normally does in our state, from the upstate down instead of from the low country.
My daughter
up.
called. Clemson had 2 inches. They were having a blast up there. Lawrence had snow. They were making snowmen there, or snow women, whichever one. And we went, and then over there to York County, they had about probably 3 or 4 inches, looks like. So,
and Columbia got nothing.
And Columbia got, well, we got a little bit of snow.
I saw about 15 minutes of snow at my house,
but it didn't stick, so that's a good thing. And real cold temperatures tonight. There are some delays. But government officers in Columbia are delayed 2 hours tomorrow just because of the fear of the wet.
The longer
ground.
we can keep the politicians out of town.
It's that black ice, Corn.
That's
black
correct.
Ice.
We're fear for the roads being frozen, dangerous to the public, driving into Columbia. So.
Right. It's because we don't have sand here, and we don't have pre-treatment of roads or anything like that here. Do we?
Correct. You remember what the guy said? Remember what the Charleston guy said about the airport? Did you see the interview he had?
No, I didn't. What he
like
said?
The 7th day the airport was closed or something. He said this is not Detroit. He
Yeah,
said we're not used to this. He said,
Probably have
do-
no de-icing stuff.
He said we do not have scrape blades, none of that. So anyway,
well, what's happening in the great outdoors? It looks like waterfowl season is still moving forward.
Waterfowl season still going on. Activity is slow. It's funny to say it's slow because it's cold, but the last 2 weeks, extremely low temperatures, down in the teens, down below the teens, down into single digits. Froze a lot of the water and impoundments and other areas, and birds moved out. So it's been slow. Some of the backwater areas still have water now for wood ducks. Again, that's a popular duck here in South Carolina for most of the public to be able to access. It's probably our #1 duck in the bag because it's the most plentiful in our state. But again, slowed down a little bit with cold weather. It's warmed up again, so we do have water, not ice. Tonight will be a cold night. But for the most part, water's open back up again. Our Category 1 areas, we keep talking about those, but I like to try to highlight those because folks kind of want to know what's going on the coast. Category 1 areas have continued to see high success rates. Again, if you're not taking part in our waterfowl drawings, you should be. It's $20 a year to put in. Usually after about 3 years, you'll get drawn. It's worth every penny, so put into that. Around October, be looking for that. We'll remind you on the show here. But some of the great areas on the coast, top area for this past week was Cedar Island at the Santee Coastal Reserve with an average of 5.8 ducks per man. Pretty much everybody got their limits, what that means. The top duck in the bag was American Widgeon or Baldpate. A very close second was Gadwall with blue-winged teal in a distant third. Our runner-up area for the week was Bear Island East with an average of 5.3 ducks per man. The top duck of the day there was Gadwall. Again, Gadwall high in the limit this year. Green-winged teal was a distant second there, with the northern shoveler or the old spoonie in third. The top pintail hole for the week, just for those waterfowlers out there that want to know where the pintails are, the top pintail hole for the week was Murphy Island at Santee Coastal Reserve.
What makes the pintail most desirable?
The pintail is just kind of that tuxedo mallard, they call him. Just a pretty duck. They are a favorite among waterfowlers because they're not that plentiful. It's a special occasion to be able to shoot a pintail. Some people on the coast are used to seeing lots of pintails, but the average waterfowler does not see a pintail every day. So pintails are just kind of that special duck for folks.
And how do you end up with a point something of a duck?
Again, that's averaging, Phil, when you have 11 hunters and maybe 10 of them shot the limit.
They didn't,
but one did not. You had one bad shot in the crowd, like you.
Maybe you only found part of the duck.
No, it has nothing to do with part of the duck.
They didn't teach simple division at a lot of
I know he has a hard time every time I say point something ducks per man. He's like, wait a minute.
It just sounds like
how does
he picked up a piece of the duck instead of the whole duck. All right, what's next?
Well, after the segment, we're going to talk about night hunting for coyotes in our last segment. But something I wanted to bring up here today. We had came on Actually had a story come up today that I saw. It's been in the news twice. Ended up being a friend of mine I knew, but he was telling a story about quail hunting, which is something of reference to all hunters to think about. A story that happened to him. It's not a good story. In fact, that he went on a quail hunt with some friends, somebody he didn't know as well, and a guy ended up swinging out of his zone of fire. We talk about zone of fire. We'll talk about it in a minute. But swung out of his zone of fire and he got shot.
Ooh.
Ended up getting pellets in the face. And we're just talking about the experience from the standpoint for him. He'd never been in a situation where he'd been hunting with someone where someone would actually swing on him.
Explain that when you mean swing on
zone
him.
of fire. So zone of fire. When you're hunting doves or any other birds, you're going to sit in the field. Typically, when we teach classes on hunter education, we tell folks all the time, when you get in a dove field, look around, you see where everyone else is at, and determine where your zone of fire or the area in which you can safely shoot.
Kind of like a cutting circle.
Exactly.
Almost.
Like us at the table here, we'd be shooting out.
Right.
My zone of fire is out this way, yours is that way, Phil's that way. So you basically cut the pie, and this is your area you can shoot in.
Going basically behind us, so that you're not shooting towards anybody.
So you always shoot away from other people. Right. When you're quail hunting, typically you walk forward, or if you're pheasant hunting, things like that, or any type of jump shooting, you're hunting in a line. You may have 1, 2, 3 hunters walking in a line. The guy in the middle is shooting in the middle. The guy to the left shoots to the left. The guy on the right obviously shoots to the right,
away from the group.
You don't want the guy on the right shooting all the way to the left across the guy in the middle. Which is what happens when people get fixated on the bird. They get excited. They follow the bird with the gun. They forget about where they're shooting, and they shoot out of their zone of fire. So it's something we talk about a lot in hunter education classes. In this particular story, he was hunting with someone he didn't know, never met before. And that is neither here nor there, except for the fact that a lot of times hunters like to be with people they know. When I hunt, I like to know who
is that because you know their tendencies?
Exactly. You know what they know. You know that they know what they're doing.
Yeah. You hope that they also know the rules about zone of fire.
Exactly. So when you're someone that you haven't hunted before, you may expect them to know the rules, and they may not. In this case, they had a couple of instances where quail had come back and flown, which a lot of times when you're hunting quail and you push the quail up, they'll fly straight back at you. So there's no shot. There's opportunities in hunting there's times in hunting when you just don't have a shot. It's not worth taking a bad shot. So we teach that all the time in hunter education. In this particular story, they had a couple of instances where they pushed the birds up, they came back at them, so they couldn't shoot. And the guy got frustrated and said, hey, you need to shoot these birds. And to the next one, birds got up. The guy got excited, said, I'm going to shoot the bird. And he focused on it, swung around and pulled the trigger and shot this guy over to the left and hit him in the face and upper torso.
Wow.
He ended up going to the hospital. You know, he said he ended up on the ground, wake up, and he's like, ears ringing, and he feels blood on his face. And end of the day, it was not a very attractive story, but it was a lesson to be learned in that you always watch who you're hunting with. You always watch for your zone of fire. Know who you're hunting with. It's worth going over the rules every time you go out to make sure everybody understands it.
Yes.
And don't get caught up in the excitement to make a mistake. This story happened probably 20 years ago, but he was just talking about it in a story just recently. A lot of folks thought it just happened, but it had not. It actually happened back in the late 90s. But it was a good friend of mine. When I saw who wrote the story, I was like, wow, I know him. I called him up, and he started telling me the story again. But it's attracted a lot of attention in the last week because people start thinking about zone of fire and why don't people know that. Then they start talking about reporting accidents. You know, I'm in hunter education weeks. I have to review in my office all the hunting accidents that get reported in the state.
Are you finding accidents are up, down? About
No,
the same?
they're not. In fact, most of them mostly were down on tree stand action, which is great this past year. But we're always going to have that moment. There's always going to be times when people have a lapse in judgment, and most of the time it's not fatal. But when you're talking guns, you don't want there to be any type of incident because there's too much of a tendency for. With action with a gun, someone could get seriously injured.
And when you don't see the accident reports and stuff like that, people lull themselves into a false insecurity, might let their inhibitions down a little bit.
Yeah. So for us, looking at hunting accident reports from year to year gives us tendencies of where we are. Are people being safe? Are we teaching what we need to teach in hunter education? And this just brought up another instance of talking about zone of fire and knowing where knowing where you're going to shoot when you go on a hunting trip. Talk to that guy if you're in a duck blind. Make sure you know the guy beside you, he shoots to the left, you shoot to the right if he's on your left, and you don't shoot across him. No matter what, no matter if it's that pintail you've been waiting on, you don't take a bad shot. You don't lower your gun and shoot too low in a dove field as well, where you might, again, scatter shot on somebody that could sting them or injure them.
Okay, our phone number, 800-956-7266. We have the captain, Billy Downer, in SC Wild. Question or comment, fire away at the captain. Going to come back and talk about coyotes right here on SC Wild.
It's time to get wild with SC Wild. Everything hunting and fishing from the South Carolina Department of Natural Resources and your host, Phil Kornblut. SC Wild on Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Starring, of course, the captain, Billy Downer, no doubt, without question, the most popular member of DNR in South Carolina. Are you well known as you walk around your office?
This show has
traveled through the state.
Is that forward?
The captain, Billy Downer?
There it is.
Of Sports Talk SC Wild fame?
Yes,
I'm sure.
yes.
Probably hard to keep people from lining up from autographs and things like that. Huh? Showing off your gun. You like to show off your gun.
Did we have a call?
Let's go to Tom in Charleston with us here on SC Wild. Hello, Tom.
Hey, Phil. How you doing?
Good.
Good. I'm glad to hear from y'all. And Mr. Downer, I appreciate you taking our calls and everything about wildlife, because I've been in South Carolina doing it for a long time.
Well, we're glad to hear from you. What's up?
Yeah, I just want to talk about the new rules and everything. And I don't want to take away from fowl hunting and everything, but I want to go back to deer hunting. And I just saw some issues we had this year on the new tags and the new procedure we have and everything. And the main thing is and unfortunately, we have so many people filtrating our country, our state, not our country, our state, on deer hunting, on dog hunting, which I love the dog hunt, which our dogs are bred and raised and bred and do everything on dog hunting. But when we have tags and we out here dog hunting, and we have game wardens come up to us and they say, "Where are your tags?" And I said, "I have them in my vehicle," which is about 20 feet from me. And they said, "Well, you have to have the tags on you." And then we get fined for not having the tags on you. That's a issue I had, because I have the tags and within my ream, but we got fined for it.
Right. So you're saying you actually got a ticket.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
You're saying you actually got a ticket for not having the tags on your person.
Well, and that's just it. I did not get a ticket.
Okay.
But several of my members of my club that I joined, I'm in Charleston, and I went all the way to the upstate because I love dog hunting. And some of the members got tickets because they did not have the tickets on them when the game warden approached them. And the problem is I carried mine on me after they got tickets, but by the time I shot a month or doe or whatever I had, you couldn't read the tag because I sweated so much they all stuck together.
Right. Now, certainly I will speak to that for just a minute. Number one, this was the first year of the tagging philosophy in South Carolina and the new law. It has been a challenge getting people to understand the new law a little bit. And I say a challenge, it really wasn't just for us as South Carolinians. All of us have grown up hunting deer, not having to tag anything. Then you had the doe, except for does, and now also with bucks. It's something you've got to kind of relearn the process a little bit. I will say this as a tag process, and the tags you mentioned getting stuck together, that is a problem that has been brought to everyone's attention. I know that the licensing section is working on that for next year, because you're not the only person that's talked about that. Plenty of people take the tags, they put them on their dash or up in their visor, and the sun would heat them up and they would stick together and they were unlegible and had to reorder tags or get replacement tags. So that absolutely was a problem that I know we're dealing with. As to the tags on your person, that's something we've got to walk through together a little bit from an enforcement standpoint, and hunters together work together a little bit on that, because the law actually does state that you're supposed to have them with you. And when it says with you, it does mean on your person. But I understand your point, who's going to have this big sheet of tags folded up in your pocket? And so that's an issue to deal with. And I agree with you on that. But it's something we need to look at moving forward to next season. I think for the most part, though, this season went through without too many hiccups for a state that never had tags before to go through a first tagging year. I went to the processor many times, taking deer of my own. And you're always, as an officer, you're looking around. It's just something I can't help, second nature, looking to see if all the deer are tagged. And I didn't expect it, but most of the deer, in fact, this year, unusual because in the past when we didn't require tagging, I always would end up with somebody with a doe that wasn't tagged. This year, I never saw a problem. Everybody's deer were tagged, so I was pleasantly surprised. So I hate that you may have had a bad experience. I think moving forward, we'll work through the issue you spoke about specifically with the tags being stuck together. And I think as officers and hunters together, we can work through that possession issue with the licenses as well. So thanks for your comments and bringing that up. And we'll continue to work together toward that resolution come next August when we face the second deer season in tags.
All right, sir. Thank you very much for the phone call. Let's get to the other major point of the night you wanted to talk about, and that is coyotes and night hunting.
Yep. You know, deer season's over. A lot of folks this time of year are looking for something else and particularly if they are a big deer hunter and deer clubs, they don't like coyotes. Nobody seems to like coyotes. Coyotes on everybody's hit list because coyotes, number one, they have been proven to prey on fawn, on young deer to some degree.
Is there anything positive about a coyote?
Well, they're not supposed to be here. There's the problem.
Yeah.
Coyotes are a Midwestern animal. They're supposed to be in the prairies. They're not supposed to be here.
Kind of like me.
But
well put.
Wow. Second, wow, tough crowd.
Anyway, go ahead.
But so they're not supposed to be here, but yet they've come from migration. They were illegally brought in as well.
So was I.
A combination of reasons why they ended up here in South Carolina.
How many years ago?
The 1970 was the first actual sighting of a coyote. They migrated across the Mississippi here. 1989, after Hugo, there was an explosion of coyote sightings in the state relative to a lot of fox hunting pens where they had been brought in illegally. Not anything against fox hunting, but there were a lot of instances where people had brought in coyotes illegally to run with dogs. And when Hugo came through, hurricane, blew down a lot of fences, all of a sudden there's a lot of coyotes popping up in places. So a lot of different reasons why coyotes are here, natural migration and illegal importation. But they're here now.
Okay.
They have an impact on deer population to some degree. That's been proven to some degree. I think deer, for the most part now, are kind of climbing out of that. You give any animal time to adapt to a change, they're going to overcome it. You know, it's never been proven that they are any kind of impact on turkeys. A lot of people think that. They may take a turkey here or there, but they're not a major impact. But deer certainly. So a lot of people don't like coyotes. Coyotes also in suburban environments have been proven to take cats. So a lot of people don't like, the coyotes are an adaptive animal. They can live outside of Charleston. They live right in Mount Pleasant, right in the town of Mount Pleasant. They live in New York City outskirts. I mean, everywhere. These coyotes are adaptive animals. They can live on a lot of areas, and they learn to feed on different animals. Does
the weather affect them? The cold? Do they go away during the cold?
No, they don't. They can handle it. They can handle it. Think about the Midwest, how cold it gets out there.
Yeah.
Very, very bad.
But again, so in response to people wanting to control coyotes better in South Carolina, the General Assembly passed a budget proviso that included a coyote tagging reward program. Basically, a coyote harvest incentive program was created back in 2016 by our General Assembly. It's continued this year for the second year. Last year, we tagged, if you remember, 16 coyotes. A lot of questions about that. Our biologists went out with the help of some trappers. They went out and trapped 4 coyotes, or 16 coyotes, and released them in the 4 game zones. Basically, 4 coyotes in each game zone. People ask, well, what coyote they trap? Did they do any kind of surgery or anything? No, they're males. They weren't sterilized. They were male coyotes, and they were released. Last year, we had 8 coyotes taken. This year, 16 more have been released, and only 2 have been taken. So there's 22 still out there with tags. They have ear tags and specific contact information. Anyone who takes one of these tag coyotes as an incentive and saves the carcass and reports to DNR receives a complimentary lifetime hunting license. So it's an incentive to get folks to go out and coyote hunt to control the population.
Something that needs to be done.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, Captain, final thoughts?
As always, enjoy being here. But as our story said before, remember, when you hunt with others, in a blind, in the field, watch your muzzle, know the direction you're supposed to shoot, and shoot in your zone of fire.
Good advice. And be safe in the snow and the ice. Watch your step. And we thank you, sir. We'll see you back here in a couple of weeks. Thank you, Will. Thank you, Brian. SC Wild on Sports Talk. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow night.